Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine living in America during the 1930s. The fields are dry and cracked, factories have shut down, and men, once the pillars of their families, now sit silently on their porches, lost in thought. Jobs? There are none. Money? Never enough. And dinner, on many nights, might be nothing more than a piece of stale bread. It was the time of the Great Depression, a time that, if you're watching this video, perhaps you, or your parents, your grandparents, have heard stories about. Back then, people didn't talk much about hope. They talked about survival. No one dared dream of tomorrow. They only prayed they'd have enough strength to feed their family today. And amidst that bleak landscape, there was one image, one moment, that carved itself into the history of America. A black and white photograph, simple yet profound, capturing the pain, the sacrifice, and the unshakable strength of mothers and fathers of that era. Do you recognize it? A woman, her eyes gazing far into the distance, holding her two children tightly against her. Her eyes seemed to be searching for something far away, in a future blurred by uncertainty. That's the photograph known as Migrant Mother, the immortal symbol of a generation that refused to be broken. Today, I'm going to share with you the story behind that photograph. Her name was Florence Owens Thompson. When this iconic photograph was taken, Florence was only 32 years old, a time when most women might still be dreaming of a quiet, stable home, of better days ahead. But life had never been kind to Florence. She was born into a poor Cherokee family, growing up on the dusty plains of Oklahoma, where the winds carried sandstorms and hardship. From a young age, she learned how to work, how to toil under the sun, her hands calloused before she was even a young woman. Florence married early. She and her husband traveled across the western states of America, chasing seasonal jobs, taking whatever work they could find to put food on the table. They had 7 children, 7 little lives brought into a world that offered no promises, only struggle. Tragically, Florence's husband passed away while the children were still small, leaving her to shoulder the burden of raising them alone. And then came the economic storm. The Great Depression hit like a relentless wave. Florence and her children wandered from one migrant camp to another, clinging to any opportunity to earn a few coins during harvest seasons. Their world became one of tattered tents and makeshift shelters, their meals often nothing more than wild greens and small game the children managed to catch. But do you know what makes Florence truly remarkable? It wasn't just her hardship, it was her strength in the face of it. In every photograph, especially in her eyes, you can see something burning quietly beneath the exhaustion. A mother's fierce determination, a will to protect her children at all costs, even when she had nothing left to give. Florence Owens Thompson didn't have wealth nor security, but she had resilience. And that resilience became the backbone not just of her family, but of an entire generation's story. It was March of 1936. A cold wind swept across Southern California, cutting through the barren fields and rolling hills. Just outside Nipomo, a makeshift labor camp stood, rows of tattered canvas tents, pitched on muddy ground still wet from last night's rain. This was where Florence and her children had found themselves. They had arrived with hope in their hearts, believing they might find work picking peas. But the harvest had failed. The farm owners had no jobs to offer. The camp was eerily quiet, the stillness as heavy as the empty dinner plates inside each tent. Florence glanced around the small, sagging shelter where her children huddled together for warmth, their stomachs empty. All she had left was an old, broken-down car parked nearby, a few worn belongings, and some spoiled vegetables she'd managed to salvage from a local market. Outside, hundreds of other families faced the same desperate struggle, battling hunger, cold, and uncertainty. No one knew what tomorrow would bring. Florence was no exception. Every day blurred into the next, a cycle of waiting, worrying, surviving. And yet, even amidst the bleakness, there was something unshaken in Florence's gaze. Something quiet but defiant. A flicker of determination, burning low but steady, refusing to be snuffed out by the hardships around her. While the world seemed to crumble, Florence stood as the anchor for her children. She carried their hope, even when hope felt impossible. That labor camp wasn't just a place. It was a portrait of an entire generation's resilience, painted in mud, hunger, and quiet courage. Little did Florence know, the next day would bring someone who would capture that strength forever, a photograph that would tell their story to the world. March winds carried dust across the camp as another day of waiting wore on. Florence sat quietly, her children leaning against her, their small bodies seeking warmth and reassurance. The weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air. It was then that a stranger arrived, a woman with sharp eyes and a camera slung around her neck. Her name was Dorothea Lange, a photographer working for the U.S. government, documenting the plight of migrant workers during the Great Depression. At first, Florence was hesitant. She was weary, cautious. She didn't want pity. She didn't want attention. All she wanted was to find a way to feed her children. But Dorothea saw something in Florence, a quiet strength beneath the exhaustion. She asked if she could take a few photographs. Florence, after a moment's pause, agreed. In that instant, Dorothea raised her camera and captured a scene that would speak louder than words. A mother, weathered but unwavering, her eyes gazing beyond the present, toward a future uncertain but fiercely protected. Two of her children nestled into her shoulders, their faces turned away, clinging to the only constant in their world, their mother. Dorothea took 6 photographs that day. She didn't ask for names, and she moved on quickly, continuing her journey. But the image she left behind became something far greater. That single frame, later titled Migrant Mother, would become an enduring symbol of America's struggle and perseverance during the Great Depression. Florence never imagined that, in the simple act of sitting with her children, she would leave a mark on history. But in her eyes, the world saw more than hardship. They saw resilience, sacrifice, and a mother's unbreakable love. They called it Migrant Mother. But this photograph wasn't just about Florence Owens Thompson. It spoke for millions, men, women, families, struggling across America during those dark, uncertain years. When Dorothea Lange's image was published in newspapers and magazines, it struck a chord deep in the hearts of people everywhere. Here was a face etched with hardship, yet filled with quiet determination. It wasn't staged, it wasn't glamorous, it was real. And because of that, it couldn't be ignored. The photo traveled far beyond the Napomo camp. It reached government officials, relief organizations, and everyday citizens who perhaps hadn't grasped the full weight of the Great Depression. Soon after the photo was released, truckloads of food and supplies were sent to the very camp where Florence and her children had waited in hunger. But more than material aid, Migrant Mother shifted the way America saw its own people. No longer were migrant workers just nameless, faceless individuals drifting from town to town. They became mothers, fathers, and children with stories, dignity, and hope. Florence never sought the spotlight. She remained humble, often unaware of how deeply her image resonated. She simply carried on, raising her family, moving forward as best she could. But through that single photograph, Florence became a symbol, a reminder that even in the harshest times, the human spirit endures. Her gaze continues to reach across generations, whispering of strength, sacrifice, and the unwavering love of a mother who refuses to give up. Because sometimes, all it takes is one image to tell the story of an entire generation. Florence Owens Thompson never sought fame. She lived her life quietly, raising her children and facing each day's challenges with unwavering resolve. She was unaware that her image had become a beacon of hope and resilience for countless others. It wasn't until later in life that she learned of the photograph's impact, and even then, she remained humble, embodying the strength and dignity that had been captured so many years before. Today, Migrant Mother stands as a testament to the enduring spirit of those who lived through the Great Depression. It reminds us of the hardships faced and the unbreakable bonds of family and community that carried people through the darkest of times. The photograph has been displayed in museums, featured in history books, and continues to resonate with new generations, illustrating the timeless nature of human resilience. Florence's story is not just one of survival, but of unwavering love and determination. She symbolizes the countless mothers and fathers who, despite overwhelming odds, fought to provide for their families and build a better future. Her legacy lives on, not just in the photograph, but in the spirit of perseverance that defines the American experience. As we reflect on this iconic image, let us remember the lessons it imparts: the importance of empathy, the strength found in unity, and the enduring power of hope. Florence's gaze invites us to look beyond our own circumstances and recognize the shared humanity that binds us all. In honoring her story, we honor the stories of all who have faced adversity with courage and grace. Migrant Mother is more than a photograph. It is a mirror reflecting the resilience within each of us, a reminder that even in the face of profound hardship, the human spirit remains unbroken. And so we close this chapter carrying forward the legacy of Florence Owens Thompson, a legacy of strength, love, and an enduring testament to the power of the human spirit. Sometimes, all it takes is one photograph to tell the story of an entire generation. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's keep these powerful stories alive. And let us know in the comments, what does this photograph mean to you?